Hello once again, everybody, from Cooperstown, New York, side of the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum. We thank you for joining us for the latest in our series of online programs from the Baseball Hall of Fame. Today, our virtual author series. Welcome once again. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bruce Marcus, and I work in the Education Department at the Hall of Fame. And very glad to have with us a couple of our good friends. They've been to Cooperstown before. One of them has been in our author series numerous times, and the other gentleman has been in Cooperstown for a special Jewish baseball symposium, which took place way back in 2004. We're very glad to have with us co-authors of the book, The Designated Hebrew, the Ron Blomberg story, with us, Ron Blomberg himself and his co-author, Dan Schlossberg. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. Thank you for being with us today.
Bruce, it's wonderful to be here, and it's great to talk to baseball fans. And this is nice because it's a little bit tough out there this year, and it's great to be able to talk to fans and people that love the game of baseball.
And it's great to talk about this book in particular because Ron made baseball history, and the only bat in the Hall of Fame because of a walk is there because of Ron Blomberg.
Well, the good part about it, I screwed up the game in '73, and now 40-something years later, I still can talk about it. So it's been fun.
Well, we're going to talk about that day when you made history as the first designated hitter in the history of Major League Baseball. You were mentioning that you still live in Atlanta, Ron. That's where you are now. That's where you grew up. Now, you grew up in Atlanta back in the 50s and 60s. The Braves had really not yet relocated or located to Atlanta at that point. They were still the Milwaukee Braves. I'm wondering, while you were growing up in Atlanta back in the 50s and 60s, who was your baseball hero? Was there somebody in the game, in the sport, that you idolized in particular?
Well, you know, it's really funny coming from the South. And when I was growing up, when I was a little kid, only thing we had was minor league baseball. We had what they called the Atlanta Crackers, and I don't know if you remember them. And it was down in Ponce de Leon Park, and I was a little kid. And baseball was not really that big back then. It was football, of course, and basketball. And then all of a sudden, the Boston Braves, Milwaukee Brewers left to go down to Atlanta, and I became a fan, and it was great. I was never a Braves fan, and I know that Dan is the biggest Atlanta Braves fan in the world, but I became a Yankee fan. Why? Because at that particular time, we had Pee Wee Reese and Dizzy Dean was always on the game of the week. And the only games that we actually saw was the New York Yankees. And that was wonderful. And I mean, the New York Yankees. So I became a Mickey Mantle fan. And he was my idol. And he was somebody that I look as my hero, to be honest with you. And when I signed with the Yankees when I was 17 years old, I had an opportunity to meet Mickey. And then I became friends with Mickey. And he never disappointed me. He was wonderful. I loved him. And he's still to this day, he's my favorite ball player ever.
As I remember, when you made your debut in '69, wasn't Mickey part of the coaching staff?
He was. The good part about it was I met him when I first signed in '67. I had an opportunity to sign my contract up in New York. And then I went down to spring training in '68 with the team, and he was on the team. And I got to, as soon as I got in the training room, I'm making my rounds and looking at all the places. And he was up on the training table with about 4 or 5 pounds of tape on him. And I'm looking at this, and I'm saying to myself, God, this guy looks like a mummy. And I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at him. I said, that's Mickey. And, I watched him put on his uniform. I watched him finally got out off the training table. And I'm saying, how in the world is he walking? No less playing. And So, I didn't get to meet him that much then, but I spoke to him. And also when I was down in spring training, being an outfielder then, he took some of the prospects and talked about, the outfield work, about, how to play different hitters and how to line up. And, to be honest with you, I didn't listen to him at all. I was in awe. I'm watching him and I'm saying, how in the world can this guy walk? I mean, he was like walking better than I was. And he was he was like secretariat to me, to be honest with you. I mean, he was like an Adonis. And, and he was somebody that, I looked upon as a major hero. And he was a wonderful, wonderful man. He was always great to me. And I was very, very lucky to be able to meet him, to be friends with him, and to be able to basically dress in the same locker room that he did.
I think we should mention here that when the Yankees drafted Ron first in the country in 1967 in the amateur draft, he was immediately referred to in the New York press as the Jewish Mickey Mantle. And injuries interfered with that. Otherwise, he might have realized that potential.
Well, it's really, nobody could be like a Mickey Mantle. Anybody, people talk about LeBron James and Michael Jordan, who's better? And everybody will always ask me, who was your best center fielder you ever seen? And I said, Mickey Mantle was my idol. And people say, well, Willie Mays. Hey, they're different ball players. Once you reach that status, you got the major leaguers, and then you have people a little bit higher, and then you got the Hall of Famers, and then you got the superstars. And Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays were up there with the superstars. Nobody could be like Mickey Mantle, to be honest with you. After I left, there was guys, they pegged them to be another Mickey Mantle. But nobody is going to be like a Mickey Mantle, to be honest with you. I was so excited, to be honest with you, to be able to put the Yankee pinstripes on, to play up in New York where all the Jews were. And, unfortunately, I was injured, quite a bit throughout my career, but that was part of baseball. And nobody can ever tell me that I didn't give 120%. And that's what I did. To be honest with you, I ran into too many walls down in spring training. And, and that was very, very hard. And back in those days, if you had injuries, we didn't have the modern technology what these guys have now. The only thing they did with us is, when you had a muscle pull, they spit tobacco on it. And, they put tobacco on your muscle pull, or you get in the whirlpool, or, they massage it and they tell you to get out and play. Because if you didn't go out and play the next day and to go out and play, to be honest with you, if they ship you down to the minor leagues, you're never going to come back. Yeah. So I didn't want to be like a Wally Pipp. I wanted to be my true self. And unfortunately, I had quite a few injuries. But when I did play, I was fairly decent. But again, like I said, I got to put on the Yankee pinstripes. I got to play up in New York. I got to play in the greatest atmosphere in the world, Yankee Stadium, and being with the New York Yankees.
Dan, I wanted to ask how you and Ron first met.
Oh, a long time ago. I was promoting a chair. I don't even remember the name of the chair, but it was a mechanical chair. And we wanted to have a celebrity endorse it. And we chose Ron, and that's how we first met a long, long time ago. And it was a pleasure to work with Ron on this book. It was great. And I wanted Ron to tell the story about the 72-ounce steak, free if you could eat it in an hour. That was in the minor leagues, right, Ron?
Oh, that was easy. That was I was in the Carolina League in Kenansville, North Carolina. And my hometown was at Kinston, right in Cape Hatteras, right near the Outer Banks. And, back then we made a lot of money. I think we made $3 for meal money. And, we had bus trips with no AC in it. And I was known to be a big eater, and I always stayed in pretty decent shape. And we walked into this restaurant. It was like, a bunch of us will go. I mean, we didn't have any money, to be honest with you. We go in this restaurant and they had this deal. If you can eat a 72-ounce steak with all the trimmings, it's free. I said, hey, that's me. Like that. I said, I could do that. So, that's what I did. I did it 3 times. I ate my 72-ounce steak. I think I had like black-eyed peas. I had turnip greens. I had okra. And the good part about it was they gave us a little bit over an hour to eat it. And at the end of it, we had banana pudding. It was unbelievable. It was great. So every time we went to Keanersville to play in the minor league game, I knew that. And to be honest with you, I was like the 3rd person ever. And that restaurant was there for like 30 years. And I was the 3rd guy to ever do it. And I think I was the 1st guy ever did it like 3 times. But hey, we didn't have any money. I didn't want to eat White Castles my whole career. So that was a place where we knew we were going to get a good meal. So that was wonderful.
Yeah, I want to talk about these legendary food expeditions that you and Walt No-Neck Williams went on. I've heard about these. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But I want to go back to Dan for just a moment. You talked about how you first met doing a promotion for a chair, of all things. How then did the book come about as a result? Was this your idea, Dan? Did Ron approach you? How did the book idea kind of germinate?
Well, the title of the book came about because Dick Schaap, years after Ron was retired, said to Ron, what was it like to be the first DH? And Ron, quick-thinking guy that he is, said, what do you mean, designated Hebrew? And Dick Schaap said, that's a book. So sure enough, it became a book, and I was very pleased to work with Ron on the project. Ron, by the way, you mentioned the Jews in New York. You got to tell the story of how you became known as the Sundown Kid.
Well, you're talking about the one in Cleveland?
Yeah.
We had a game in Yankee Stadium, and I think it was it Yom Kippur or was it Rosh Hashanah? I think it was Yom Kippur. And of course, sundown and the time that you had to quit. And it was like a 1 o'clock game. It was a Sunday, I believe. It was a Sunday game. And it started, of course, at 1:05. And we're playing the Cleveland Indians. And we got into the 9th inning, and I was playing first base then. And I got a base hit. And it was like, it was, I think, to be honest with you, I think Mike Kekich was pitching, and we called Mike Kekich full count because every time Mike Kekich pitched, it was always 3-2, 3-2, 3-2. And I said to myself, I'm in New York, I'm Jewish, I got to go to services, I go to services in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur all the time. And I had already service already, and I knew where I was going to go because I lived up in Riverdale, New York then, right outside of the city, right near the stadium. And I got up to that. I think it was like 10 after 5. And I said, if I didn't get a base hit, we're going to have to go in extra innings. And if we go in extra innings, and if I go 1 minute over the time limit, the people in New York's going to kill me, being Jewish, and I'm supposed to be going to services, and I couldn't tell Ralph, hey, it's time for me to go to services. So luckily, I got a base hit, and I rushed in. Maury Chance, Maury Allen, Dick Young, they came up. They said, how did you do this? How did you, you have Yom Kippur. I said, hey, the guy up above was looking after me. So the next day, it was a whole big spread and back in the paper. And of course, living up in New York and playing up in New York, if you have a good game or a bad game, they're going to destroy you, or they're going to make you look good. So that was one of the games that made me look good, and they called me the Sundown Kid. And that stuck with me, and it's been great. I've been very lucky throughout my life. I lived a fantasy, to be honest with you. The people, the fans are the heroes. I did something what I wanted to do. I played in front of the greatest fans in the world. I put on to me, okay, to put on the greatest uniform, to be in the greatest city in the world, and to be able to play baseball. I had a wonderful time. I love the people up in the city. I love, the season and doing the off season. I was very, very lucky. I was very, very blessed to be able to live a wonderful, wonderful baseball life. And even to this day, I go up to New York. I work with the Yankees. I do an awful lot of stuff. And to be able to just meet the fans and to be part of baseball and like I tell people, in '73, I screwed up the game of baseball, but screwing up the game of baseball really maybe kept myself in the game of baseball so they can never take it away. And I made wonderful, wonderful fans. And when I still go back up to New York, I feel like I'm loved up there. They take good care of me.
So the fans obviously treated you very well. You were very popular in New York. There's no question about that. But I'm wondering, you're coming up in the Yankee system in the mid to late 1960s. There's anti-Semitism in America. There's probably some anti-Semitism within the game. How were you treated by other players, opposing managers? I'm not asking you to name names, but were there any situations where people within the game gave you a hard time because of your Jewish heritage?
You know what? I've spoken to a lot of when I was up there, the Jewish ball players. Sandy Koufax, of course, was Jewish. Of course, he was before my time a little bit. I spoke to Hank Greenberg only at Old Timers Day. I spoke to Art Shamsky, of course. I spoke to Richie Scheinblum. I see these guys doing this. I never saw. The only time I saw Art, he's one of my best friends, when he was with the Oakland A's, and he was with them for a short period of time. I saw Richie when Richie was with Kansas City and also Cleveland. To be honest with you, I never had really a hard time. When I grew up in Atlanta in the 60s, most of my teammates in high school were the KKKs, or the John Birch Society. And people don't realize this. And if people read the book, they can see this. And Dan wrote a great book, and we sold tons of these books, and we still are selling tons of these books now. And the good part about it was, when I was in Atlanta, I saw all the, the blacks is a minority, Jews a minority. We both were. And I saw exactly what they went through because I went through it also. I had to sit back in the back of the bus. I had to drink out of a different water fountain. So I saw all this stuff too. And, and I know what all these people are going through now. And it's very, very difficult. It's very, very hard. But I was very lucky to be a pretty decent athlete. And most of the people that were on my team that was in the KKKs, out of probably maybe a 14, 15-man baseball team, I probably had maybe 8 or 9 ball players that families came for the KKKs. Because I was known for that at that particular time. And, after the games, like on Friday nights, they'll have their cross burnings, they'll have their robes, and they'll have their hoods in the back of their cars. And they'll go, I don't know if you've been to Atlanta before, there was a place called Stone Mountain. And that's where they had all the cross burnings. And they would say, I need to go to Stone Mountain. And I know exactly what they were going to. And 3 houses away from me was the Grand Dragon. But they never looked at me as a Jew. Well, they knew I was Jewish, but they looked at me and they went on my coattails an awful lot because being Jewish and being a good athlete, and they knew I had all the scouts and all the college scouts. And they knew that, I was friends with all these people. They still were brothers of mine, even though that the South was a tough place. If anybody ever saw Mississippi Bernie, that was exactly like Atlanta.
Yeah.
I lived in Atlanta, it was like the Civil War. It was like if you saw Pride and His Daisy, if you saw all the movies, and it was a tough time. But I was very, very lucky. And throughout my baseball career, my couple of years I played in the Appalachian Leagues. It's all Virginia people and North Carolina people, and then I played in the Carolina League. It was all Virginia, North Carolina. So I heard like little, does he have horns? That true boy right there. But they had no idea what they're saying. And my parents always told me, look forward. I never said anything, and I was very, very lucky. I had a lot of people who were jealous of me not a lot, but a few people on my baseball team in New York with the Yankees, because all the writers are Jewish, all the TV people are Jewish, and at that time there was a lot of Jewish owners on the team. So and they saw I had a lot of people that took care of me up there. Even though when I wasn't playing, I always had a quote in the paper, and you see all that. So I try to make it really look good. So I took 3/4 of my teammates down to the Garment District in New York. So I made sure that they got all the suits and all the pants that they wanted free. So I took care of that. And then I went to all the restaurants in the city. They got all their meals free. So they started loving me after that.
Ron, I'm going to ask you to make just a couple of adjustments for us. We're starting to lose you on the screen. If I could
How's that?
That's better. And
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to back away from the microphone just a little bit. I think
How's that?
you're close to the mic and it's distorting your voice just a little bit. So
Okay. Tell me, am I better now?
A lot better. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that. I want to run down some of the numbers on Ron Blomberg's career. Played for the Yankees from 1969 through the 1976 season. Was really a terrific left-handed hitter. Batted .322 in 1971. Drew a lot of walks. Always had good on-base percentages. Always had good slugging percentages. Made history as the first designated hitter. Had some injury problems with the Yankees. Ended up eventually finishing his career with the Chicago White Sox in the late 1970s. So those just some of the numbers on Ron Blomberg. Ron, I'm curious about the relationship between Jewish players and black players in your era, both obviously facing bigotry, although for different reasons, one for skin color, one for religious heritage. Did that unite black and Jewish players at all? Did it give you guys a common bond, or was that not a factor?
To be honest with you, I had more black friends than I had white friends, to be honest with you. My best friends on the team, I roomed with Thurman for about 4 years, but my best friends were like Oscar Gamble, Mickey Rivers, Chris Chambliss, Roy White, Rod Carew, Willie Mays. We lived in the same apartment building up in Riverdale. We're like brothers. I mean, to be honest with you, in New York, we used to go out to dinner all the time, and our big music was Motown, and we would always go and eat at Sylvia's restaurant in Harlem, and then we'll go to Apollo Theater and then listen to the Motowns, and that's what we did, to be honest with you. And I never looked at skin color. Hey, a person is a person. The guy up above made everybody the same. That's how I looked at things. And, and I was always friends. And even to this day, I used to go to KC, and I used to, and my real good friends in KC was Amos Otis, John Mayberry, and Ellie Howard was, and then Ellie Howard was our first base coach. And we all used to go after the ball game was over with in KC. We always used to go to Brian's, the barbecue rib place that was really, really famous. we would go to all these places. We would do things together. I would go to clubs together with, it was just like we would go like Bobby Bonds used to be one of my closest friends when he was with the Yankees. I used to go to Willie Horton's place in Detroit, and it was Willie Horton's, Gates Brown, Bill Free, all these guys. Nobody looked at things like that. You know what? I would tell you right now, I didn't see any problems. I didn't see any problems whatsoever. We're so close, even in the minor leagues. Back when I was in the minor leagues, it was tough for myself and also the black players because we're playing down south. I'm not in Atlanta now. I'm in Kinston, North Carolina. I'm in Lynchburg, Virginia. I'm in Dansville, Virginia. All these players, they didn't know what a Jew was. They didn't see many black players before. So they looked at, I come in the minor leagues because being the first being the first draft choice by the Yankees. And the first thing that the writers would do, because I was the number one in the country, they would always get articles about myself. And they would say, the Jewish New York Yankees, next Jewish, I was the first Jewish ball player that basically was up in with the Yankees. And they would say something like that. And, you can hear like little comments, you walk past somebody. I'm walking with some of the black ball players or the Hispanic ball players. And, we'll all work together. You knew that it was out there. You knew it was out there. But, like I said before, my parents always told me, people are jealous of you. People are always going to say something about you. If anybody says anything about you, just walk ahead. Don't say a word. And that's what I've done. And I've been very lucky throughout my life. And I just look at people that will say anything bad about religion or race. They're the ones that are the imbeciles. They're the ones that are not intelligent people.
Interesting perspective on your career in the 60s. Dan, I want to bring you in on this as well, because the first time I believe that we met was back in 2004 when the Hall of Fame hosted the first Jewish baseball symposium here in Cooperstown. It's an event that I'm hoping at some point we can bring back. And I believe, as I recall, I think you stayed at my house. We met for the first time. I met Ron Blomberg briefly during that weekend. Ken Holtzman was here. Elliot Maddox was here. There were some other Jewish players. Mike Epstein I interviewed over at the Clark Sports Center. So that Jewish symposium actually brought you and me together. Talk a little bit about that event. I know it's a long time ago. It's about 16 years. But it was a great event. It was a tremendous learning experience for me as somebody who grew up Catholic. I, had not really been exposed to much in terms of Jewish heritage. But what are the things you remember from that weekend here in Cooperstown?
That was a fabulous event, and I've got to tip my hat to Marty Appel, a good friend of Ron's and mine, longtime affiliation with the Yankees. Marty arranged that. Marty still has close ties with the Hall of Fame, of course. That was the first time the kosher food was ever served, and it was catered. All the meals were kosher at that event, and that was wonderful. But what I really remember about that is Elliot Maddox being on stage, and the audience was asking him questions. And somebody in the audience said to Elliot Maddox, "When did you convert to being Jewish?" And he said, "It actually happened during my playing career." So the person asking the question said, "Well, how did your teammates react?" He said, "Well, instead of calling me a Schwarzer, they called me a Jew."
And Ron, you played with Elliot, right?
Oh, wonderful guy. Let me tell you something. I had a camp. I still got a camp. It's the largest Jewish sleepaway camp in the country. It's in Milford, Pennsylvania. We come to the hall every single year. I bring a lot of my kids. We have close to 6,000 kids. It's a Jewish sleepaway camp, just not sports camp. Unfortunately, this year, this was the 100th year of the camp. The camp, of course, closed up because of the virus. Okay. Elliot and I, we became very, very, very close friends. When we got Elliot, okay, from the Rangers, and he came over to the Yankees, we became very, 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 very close because during the off season, we did a lot of things together. I had a basketball team. We played different high schools for a different charity. And Elliot was, of course, on the team. And Elliot was from New Jersey. He was a great athlete from Union, New Jersey, okay? Him and Willie Wilson, probably the two athletes that came from that area that were probably the great athletes. And Elliot was such a smart guy. He got a law degree at University of Michigan. It's super intelligent, and we became very, very close friends. And we played together. And unfortunately, Elliot got hurt at Shea Stadium when he rammed his knee into the drain at Shea Stadium and really, really messed up his career. And he's living down in Fort Lauderdale now. I haven't seen Elliot for a few years, but he's a wonderful. You talk about a great athlete. He's a great athlete. He speaks. I mean, he should run for office. I mean, he's that good, and he's that smart, and he's such a wonderful, wonderful human being. And I'll see him pretty soon again because we loved each other. We're like brothers.
You know, before he tore up his knee on that drain at Shea Stadium, he was just about as good a defensive center fielder this side of Paul Blair that you were going to find in the major leagues. In fact, he was so good that it actually forced Bobby Mercer to right field. Bobby didn't really like that move, but in terms of baseball, it made sense because Maddox was just about the best center fielder in the American League. Again, this side of Paul Blair, going back to that time. I want to go back to Dan for a moment. I want to go back to the symposium that weekend. Another guy I really enjoyed talking to at the Jewish Baseball Symposium was the guy with the nickname that it might be controversial today, but it was accepted back then, Super Jew, Mike Epstein. Wonderful guy. He put on a hitting clinic at the Clark Sports Center that weekend. I really learned a lot just talking to Mike.
Well, I know that Ted Williams helped him when they were both with the Washington Senators, second edition Senators.
Yeah. Epstein
had played with the A's as well and done very well. Hit at least one, maybe more, 30 home run seasons. He was a pretty good player, first baseman. And by the way, Norm Sherry was there too, the Sherry brothers.
Oh, yeah.
The Jewish Battery, Larry Sherry and Norm Sherry. And Norm Sherry, of course, was a manager too.
That's right. I'd forgotten they were there. It was a great event, and at some point we're going to put it on again here at the Hall of Fame. We'll just have to wait and see exactly when that happens. Want to cover some other things with Ron Blomberg. We will take your questions in our Zoom group chat in just a few minutes. But Ron, let's go back. Opening day, 1973, Fenway Park. When you stepped into the batter's box that day, did you have any idea that you were the first DH? I mean, there was no internet to keep you updated in real time. So I'm guessing maybe you didn't even know that you were making history at that moment.
I never knew. I thought, to be honest with you, I thought it was, you probably remember when they had the designated runner for Washington, and that lasted for a short period of time. You know, I mean, I had no idea what the DH was, to be honest with you. You know, I mean, I got to Fenway Park. My name was up on the lineup card. It has DH on it. I asked Ellie, I said, what do I do? He said, just go out and take BP. And the reason why I was the DH on the team, because I pulled a hamstring muscle down in spring training. 4 days we were supposed to break camp. And Ralph Houck and Dick House and Ellie came up to me and they said, are you bad enough to go on the DL? And, you know, hey, you start thinking, if you go on the DL, first of the season, they're going to bring somebody else up. first thing I think of Lou Gehrig, and I think about Wally Pip. I said, there's no way in the world that somebody's going to take the position of mine. So I get up on the plane, get to the stadium the next day. My name is the DH. I get up to bat, and the announcer, what was his name? Shermfeller or?
Yeah,
Shermfeller was the PA.
Shermfeller, and he has a very distinguished voice, and especially in Boston and Fenway Park. And you notice it. It's just like it was a great voice. So I remember getting up to bat against Louis Tiant, bases loaded, walked with the bases loaded, got to first base. Somebody got out after me. I thought I was playing first base, to be honest with you. I'm waiting for somebody to bring me my first baseman mitt. Ellie looked at me, he said, "What are you doing?" And I told him, "I'm waiting for my glove." He said, "No, you're going to sit on the pines with me like that. Only thing you do is hit." Because down in spring training, I wasn't the DH down. I was playing first base every single day down in spring training. And, what do? I sat with him. And it's 34 degrees in Fenway Park. I said, "Ellie, I'm cold. I'm freezing." He said, "Why don't you go back in the clubhouse?" So I run back in the clubhouse. To be honest with you, I tell you what I did. Because Vince was the clubhouse guy at Fenway. He never brought good food out. Always bring kibasi out, hot dogs, buns, and it wasn't really good food. But I'm sitting up there. It's warm up there. I said, and they didn't have TV where you watch the game on TV. They had the radio going. So Vince started putting the food out. So I said, "Can I get a hot dog, a kibasi?" He said, "Yeah." So I'm eating kibasi. I had my Diet Coke on. I'm listening to the game. And I said, "This is not bad. This is, I'm like a fan. I'm sitting down listening to the game, and I'm listening, and I'm warm." And I said, "Do I watch the game?" So I didn't go out. So I went down there when my next time up at bat, and I got up the second time, got a base hit. So I go back into the clubhouse, start eating some deviled eggs. I said, "This is wonderful. I'm getting up at bats. I'm in a warm place. I'm eating." I said, "I'm like a fan. This is wonderful." And, you couldn't hit in Fenway Park. You couldn't hit in the runway because there's no runway because, you go over like it's like water that's been down in Fenway Park underneath like for 100 years, and it smells, and everybody goes past the water. You run up to the clubhouse. So that's what I did. So to be honest,
what did Ralph Houck think of that?
Do what?
What did Ralph Houck think of you doing that?
He never knew. He never knew he was at the game. I was at the game too, but I was eating. I was like a fan. Yeah. Only thing I did was got up to bat. So I did that. The second game, it was a left-hander. I didn't get up to bat. So the third day, I got up to bat. I think I got a couple of hits or whatever. I did it because it's freezing up in Boston. Yeah. So, I wasn't supposed to tell people that, but that's what I did. They don't do that anymore because they got their own pitchers that they bring to the ballpark. They got computers. They watch, everything. But, people, they make the game too hard. They always ask me, how did I hit a baseball? I saw the ball, I swung, and I hit it. And nowadays, they look at computers. I said, what do they do with computers? I said, the name of the game of baseball is just still hit the baseball. You learn, if you're in the major leagues, you got to hit the baseball. But they make it so hard now. They make it so analytical now. And, thank God I played baseball. We didn't make any money. We didn't make any money at all. But the best part about it was to play baseball is how you play baseball. And nowadays, it's a different game. It's a video game. You got this shift. You got this. You got the pitchers who pitch one inning now. And thank God I played baseball when it was real baseball. and I had so much fun. We didn't have great teams every single year, but we had great teammates and we had great times.
Oh, there's no question you had a good time. There's no doubt about that. I'm trying to remember who played first base for the Yankees that opening day. Was it
Felipe Alou?
Felipe Alou, maybe?
Yes, Felipe Alou
Okay.
did.
So
Yeah.
Felipe, who was a very good player, but toward the end of his career, he was at first base, and you did the DHing. I know Mike Keegan played for the Yankees that year as well. So they had a lot of first basemen, and there was obviously plenty of room for you to be the DH. I've talked to a lot of players who say they hate being the DH. They hate sitting around, but it seemed like you had a ball doing it. So,
Well, you have to make fun of it. You have to have a good time.
yeah.
I'm not going to sit down on a bench because let me tell you something. If for me to watch baseball, it's hard for me to watch baseball nowadays. I want to be out there and play.
Sure.
I'm looking at, to play baseball, you got to be 2-3 innings forward. You cannot look at the time that you're going to get up to bat. Each and every time you get up to bat, people think you go down and look at a computer. The pitchers are not that stupid. They're going to throw you the same pitch that you got some good swings at. They're going to throw you different pitches. They're going to do that. So, the game of baseball has totally changed now. Like I said before, it's so analytical. The DHs now, people don't realize that the DH is one of the most popular position now. You look at Aaron Judge, who's been out of base, been on the DL a little bit. You look at Stanton. You look at Jeter. He was a DH some. You look at Sanchez. I'm just talking about the Yankees. Look at David Ortiz. David Ortiz, if it wasn't for the DH, he would not make the Baseball Hall of Fame. Edgar Martinez, he wouldn't make the Baseball Hall of Fame. But what makes, it's not a one-dimensional player. It's how the game is played now. It's a position player, just like being a relief pitcher. People always saw a relief pitcher as a guy that pitched one inning. When we played, you had Goose Gossage who throw 3 innings every single time he get up to pitch. You have to make the best of every position that you ever played. And I made the best time. I had a great time, and it was wonderful for me.
We're going to take questions for our two guests, Ron Blomberg and Dan Schlossberg, talking about their book, Designated Hebrew. The book originally came out in 2006, but this is a newly updated and revised edition with extra material, and it's out as of 2020. We'll tell you how you can get the book a little bit later on in the program. Before we do that, though, we want to open it up to your questions. Just go into our Zoom group chat, and you can type your question. We'll try to get to as many as we can. We have one coming in from Brian. Brian wants to know, does Ron Blomberg remember his days as a Syracuse Chief? I'm sure he does.
Absolutely. Syracuse. Absolutely, I remember. And I remember when we won the Little World Series against the Omaha team. We had Frank Birdie was my manager, and we had Lauren Babe. The time that I came up to Syracuse, I'm going to call it not Syracuse. Dan's going to be upset because he graduated from Syracuse. But I call it Syracuse, the Onondaga Lake and stuff. So we had Bobby Cox on the team. We had Tony Solita on the team. We had Thad Tillison, who just came down from the Yankees. We had Hal Renniff, who just came down from the Yankees. So we had a pretty good team. And I do remember them. The fans in Syracuse were great to us. And the greatest GM in the world was Don Ross, who ran the team in Syracuse. He did a great job. And his son, little Johnny, ran the team until the Yankees moved out. I think it's Toronto there now, or whoever's up in Toronto.
Toronto, yeah.
Up in Syracuse. Absolutely. I remember Syracuse greatly.
Dan, when you were at Syracuse University, did they call it Syracuse back then?
We called it Syracuse because it was always 0 degrees or less.
Yeah.
I got caught in a blizzard there, and that's how my writing career started because I wrote about it, sent it to my hometown paper in New Jersey. They printed it and offered me a summer job.
Yeah. Syracuse, not very far from here in Cooperstown. It's probably about a 2-hour drive. You take the thruway most of the way. Like Cooperstown, it gets very cold in the winter. And I actually read somewhere where Syracuse, I think on average, has more cloudy days than any other major city in the country.
No, wait a second. I got a Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
How many years I played in Cleveland? I have never saw in the summertime. You wake up, you still think it's wintertime because it's never, ever the sun out in Cleveland. Never. You always had that lake. Always had the lake next to the old stadium, municipal ballpark. When we used to walk down there, we used to look up, and we always used to see all the birds sitting on the lake and stuff. And we used to fly into Cleveland.
Yeah.
There was no sun, ever sun. So the good part about it was you couldn't stay and get any suntan. You always had to stay inside in Cleveland. It wasn't one of the most sunniest cities in the world.
Dan, was it at Syracuse where you really became interested in pursuing writing as a career, or did that come later on?
Actually, it came before that. I was sports editor of my high school newspaper in New Jersey and always loved baseball. And when I went to college, my original intent was to become a White House correspondent.
Wow.
But then I started covering the Syracuse baseball team, which they don't have anymore because there were so many games snowed out. And I decided I wanted to become a sports writer and went right from Syracuse University to the Associated Press. I was AP sports editor for New Jersey right away.
Let me say something. Dan is such a great writer. Let me tell you something. We had so much fun writing the book. Dan is he is so educated with the game of baseball. I've played baseball, and he was asking me questions. I had no idea. And playing first base, to this day I don't even know if I ever made an error. I always had to look up on the scoreboard and find out, was I E3, right? I was E3.
Yes.
Yeah, I had no idea anything about that. We played baseball. I had no idea how to keep the game and people always ask me, do I know how to keep a scorecard? When I go to Yankee Stadium, I think that's the only New Yorkers are the only people will ever keep scorecards. And I see these guys sitting down keeping scorecards. And people always ask me, do I know how to keep a score? I had no idea I played baseball. I had no idea how to do any of that stuff. I was a player. I was a fan of baseball, but wasn't a fan of all these stats and how to do this and how to do that. I just put my uniform on, go out and play. That's the only thing I did.
Bruce, I've got to give Ron a couple of compliments too. As a person who's covered baseball for more than 50 years, he is the friendliest, most cooperative player in interacting with media that I have ever seen. He was not only popular with fans, he was popular with the media also. A lot of players won't give us the time of day. Ron was wonderful. And for that reason, I've invited him on several baseball-themed cruises that I've done, and he's been great with the people on the boats too. So Ron, thank you for all of that.
Oh, thank you, Dan. I mean, it was wonderful to, I hope maybe one day we'll go down the Mississippi again. And we had such a wonderful time. We went on a cruise. Did we leave from St. Louis? Dan, where did we leave from? Cincinnati?
Yeah, I think Cincinnati once and St. Louis once or something like that.
We had such a wonderful time and stuff. And, I mean, hey, you got to be nice to people. I was very lucky. Like I said before, I grew up to like people. And, I mean, the writers made us. I mean, if you're nasty to the writers, I mean, you're not going to, even when doing a good ball game, they're not going to help you. I mean, but but the good part about it was so many Jewish writers. So, I mean, I had to be good to these guys. So, I mean, hey, I took care of them. They took care of me. And Dan took care of me with the book. And Dan's a great writer. I mean, he's written over 40 books. Yeah. And, you don't write over 40 books with great book companies, publishing companies are not going to, hire you and to let you write their books if he wasn't any good. He's a great book writer, and he did our book, and he was wonderful.
And we got to mention Ron's got another book in the works now, right, Ron?
I got a new book that's coming out.
Really?
Dan Epstein. It's called The Captain and Me. Triumph Book took the book, and it's about my old roomie, Thurman Munson, of course. It's not just a baseball book. It's a book about what we did on and off the field. How many times did we shot BB guns at streetlights? How many times did we egg people's rooms? How many times that we're in New York City that we're with the Italian people? You know what I'm talking about. And we became real good friends with all the people. And they loved us. We loved them. And so the book is it's going to be about all the fun times we did on and off the field. So you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And it's a great book, and it's coming out in April.
Now, speaking of those fun times, I promised earlier we're going to talk about you and Walt Williams. Passed away, sadly, a couple of years ago, but another great character in baseball history, No-Neck Williams. I heard that you and No-Neck once went into a White Castle, and I think between the two of you, you ate about 40 hamburgers. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, they're like little hamburgers. At that particular time, in Cleveland, that's the only thing that was open, like late at night, or White Castles. And, we don't eat good at the ballpark. Back then, we didn't, only thing they had for us was ham and cheese sandwiches. And that's the only thing they had for us. We had to run to make sure we got White Castles that was warm. And I think it was probably 40. Yeah, see, No-Neck had no neck because he ate all those hamburgers. And they went down real quick with him. But, we had like, I think the hamburgers were like 20 cents, 25 cents per person. And, we got out of there eating dinner, like after ball games, we paid like $4 or $5. Nowadays, you got to pay like $1.50 for a hamburger now. We couldn't afford it. So we made sure that we ate together. And he was a big eater from of course, he came from the Indians and the White Sox, and he knew all the eating places. He knew where all the White Castles was not going to have any people that were going to bother us. So we frequent those restaurants many times. No-Neck, I miss him. He was wonderful. I loved him. And people don't realize how great an athlete he was. He could dunk a basketball being 5'9". Yeah. People don't realize that. And he came out of California. He was the #1 running back out of the country when he came out of I think he's from California. Wasn't he from California? I think he went to high school in California. Am I right about that? But wherever he went to high school, he was the #1 running back out of the country then.
Yeah, he was only about 5'7", 5'8". He could play the outfield, play the infield. Didn't have a lot of power, but ran well, good line drive hitter, made contact, put the ball in play, and one of the many characters that Ron Blomberg played with. You mentioned some of the others, like the late Oscar Gamble and Mick the Quick Rivers, another guy who has been to Cooperstown to do some signings as well. Once again, the book is Designated Hebrew, the Ron Blomberg story. And as you can tell from listening to our guests today, it's an entertaining book. It is available at several outlets. If you go to Amazon.com and then put in search for Designated Hebrew, it'll come right up. You can also go to Ron's website, which is ronblombergyankees.com. Again, that's ronblombergyankees.com. Or you can go to Dan Schlossberg's site, and that is danschlossberg.net. Again, danschlossberg.net. Dan, I know that you've got to go because you've got, I believe, some dental work that is coming up later today, but we do appreciate both you and Ron being with us today. It's been a lot of fun, as I knew it would be. Thanks a lot, guys. Best of luck with the book, and, of course, best of luck with future projects as well.
Thank you, Bruce. It was wonderful. It's great to talk to baseball fans, Yankee fans, any fans, and it's great to be able to talk to you again after so many years we have not seen each other. It's great to see Dan. When he wrote my book, we became very, very close friends. He's a wonderful, wonderful man. He's a great writer. And also, if the people want to get the book, it's a great book. We sold tons of copies of these books. And I'll sign it and sign every signature that you want on the book. And just go to the website. It's a great book. It's a great book, and you'll have fun with it. You'll laugh and you cry. It's a good book.
So if you order the book from Ron's website, ronbloombergyankees.com, you can request an inscription. Very nice as well. Thank you, Ron. Thank you as well, Dan. Appreciate it, both of you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ron.
Both Ron Blomberg and Dan Schlossberg being with us this week for this edition of our virtual author series. We'll have more author series coming up throughout the rest of September into October as well as the baseball season continues. We thank everybody for joining us today here at the Hall of Fame. Have a great day, everyone.